In the early 1990s, in a quiet corner of Pennsylvania, lived a man named Michael Reinhardt. He was an architect with a reputation for being thorough, obsessive, and difficult to distract once he committed to an idea. To most people, he appeared ordinary, a reserved man with a steady routine, a modest home, and a job that kept him mostly out of sight. But Reinhardt had one long-standing belief that shaped his entire professional life. He thought modern cities were fundamentally flawed. He believed they were loud, unstable, poorly organized, and too dependent on systems that could collapse at any moment. And after years of watching failed planning projects and bureaucratic decisions, Reinhardt became convinced that the only way to build a functional environment was to design it himself, with no interference, no committees, and no compromises. Throughout the late 80s, he tried to present his ideas through normal channels. He submitted proposals to local officials, wrote letters to regional planners, and attempted to pitch an underground civic complex at community meetings. Every attempt failed. His concepts were dismissed as unrealistic, unnecessary, or too expensive. By 1991, he stopped trying to collaborate. He shifted to something else, full independence. Reinhardt purchased a small, isolated piece of land near the town of Bloomsburg, a few acres of forest with no visible value. To everyone else, it was just trees and dirt. To him, it was the foundation for an experiment he had been thinking about for almost 10 years. He spent the first month surveying the land. He measured soil density, checked the stability of the bedrock, and documented water flow beneath the surface. Neighbors occasionally saw him walking around the property with equipment, but no one questioned it. A man taking care of his own land wasn't unusual. Construction began quietly the following year. Reinhardt's first project was a vertical shaft. He dug it by hand, using a small portable generator and basic industrial tools. He removed dirt in small loads using a cart and rails he built himself. The work was repetitive, physically demanding, and slow, but he kept a consistent schedule. Day after day, he deepened the shaft. 3 feet. 6. 10. He reinforced every section with concrete designed to withstand lateral pressure. He installed ventilation ducts to keep oxygen circulating and added low-voltage lighting to maintain power efficiency. His work resembled that of a professional contractor, only there were no crews, no supervisors, and no permits. By the time the shaft reached the depth he wanted, he began cutting the first horizontal corridor. This would later serve as the backbone of the entire complex. He built it with the same precision. Clearing the tunnel, sealing the walls, managing moisture, maintaining airflow. Neighbors occasionally heard faint thuds or the hum of a generator. They assumed he was repairing equipment or building a workshop. No one knew he was expanding underground. According to the journals later recovered from the site, Reinhardt didn't see this project as a shelter or a bunker. He viewed it as a long-term structural system, something that could last decades, independent of surface infrastructure. His notes include engineering calculations, ventilation models, and detailed diagrams for future expansion. By the end of the first major phase, he had a reinforced access shaft, a functioning corridor, a ventilation network, and a basic electrical setup. This was no longer a personal experiment. It was the start of a concealed architectural project built to professional standards, created entirely by one man, working alone, with no blueprint except his own. And above ground, nothing looked unusual. Just a quiet patch of woods hiding the beginning of a city no one knew existed. As the 1990s moved forward, Michael Reinhardt's underground project shifted from early groundwork to full-scale development. What had started as a single shaft and corridor began to take shape as a structured environment, engineered with care, patience, and a level of persistence that bordered on extreme discipline. Reinhardt approached the next phase with a clearer plan. His notes showed a projected layout. Multiple chambers, connecting tunnels, and technical rooms designed to support long-term occupancy. The complex wasn't intended as a temporary hideout. He envisioned a stable, durable system capable of operating independently from the world above. Throughout 1994 and 1995, he expanded the main corridor in several directions. Each new tunnel required precise reinforcement, airflow management, and lighting. He mixed concrete on-site, using a portable drum and materials transported in small batches. He built structural supports that matched industrial standards, even though no one would see them. Reinhard installed a secondary ventilation network with a passive draft design, a system that allowed air to move without electric fans. He documented temperature levels, humidity, and air pressure, adjusting the tunnel shapes to maintain a consistent environment. This was not improvised construction. It was controlled, measured, and consistent with professional engineering practice. By the late 90s, the complex included multiple rooms of different sizes. Some were no larger than storage closets, others were large enough to serve as workspaces or living quarters. He placed concrete flooring, built platforms, and created areas where equipment could be stored safely. Electrical wiring ran through the tunnels, fed by generators he maintained regularly. Although the construction was slow, it was continuous. He worked year-round, adjusting his schedule to weather and soil conditions. Neighbors occasionally reported distant vibrations or the faint sound of metal striking stone, but these were irregular and not disruptive enough to draw official attention. Reinhard never caused safety issues on the surface, which kept suspicion low. One of the most notable additions was a large central chamber, roughly the size of a small warehouse. The excavation took years and required thousands of manual loads of soil removed through the main shaft. Inside the chamber, he installed multiple support columns and placed lighting in a grid pattern. Judging by his diagrams, this space was intended to serve as the primary operational area of the complex. During this time, he also began constructing what appears to have been a water filtration system. It included layered beds of gravel and quartz sand, designed to remove sediment and impurities. The setup suggests that Reinhard planned for long-term sustainability, preparing the infrastructure necessary for continuous living underground. Despite the complexity of the project, he kept his daily life above ground unchanged. He maintained a low profile, avoided attention, and interacted politely with neighbors. He paid property taxes on time and followed local regulations. Nothing about his surface behavior suggested the scale of what he was building below. Between 1998 and 2002, Reinhard focused on expanding secondary corridors, linking the central chamber with new sections of the complex. Each addition followed the same standards: reinforced walls, consistent measurements, and careful ventilation. Some corridors were left unfinished, marked in his notes as Phase 3 or Phase 4, indicating future work that he never started. His journals from this period show meticulous planning. He documented materials used, structural integrity tests, and projected load capacities. His writing style was technical and functional, with no emotional commentary. It was the record of a builder approaching his project as a long-term professional mission. By 2003, the underground complex had reached a scale no one would have imagined possible for a single individual. Dozens of interconnected spaces stretched beneath the forest. The system was stable, electrically powered, ventilated, and large enough to support extended occupancy. Yet, after more than a decade of construction, Reinhard still had no intention of revealing it. There were no signs he planned to involve anyone else, seek recognition, or register the structure legally. His project remained entirely hidden, until an accident exposed everything. In early 2004, an unexpected accident revealed what Michael Reinhard had spent more than a decade building in complete isolation. A local hunter, moving through the woods near Reinhard's property, stepped onto a patch of weakened ground. The soil collapsed beneath him, and he fell several feet into a narrow concrete corridor. He managed to climb out and return home, but the incident raised concerns about an unreported structure beneath private land. The sheriff's department was notified, and an official inspection was scheduled. When officers arrived at the property, Reinhard allowed them to enter without hesitation. According to reports, he remained calm and cooperative, neither defensive nor surprised. The initial inspection team located a reinforced entrance hidden beneath a section of removable soil. Once inside, they realized the scale of what lay underground. The first structure encountered was a reinforced staircase leading downward. The air inside the shaft was cool and stable, showing that the ventilation system had been functioning effectively. The walls were smooth and uniform, more reminiscent of commercial construction than a personal project. As the officers descended, it became clear they were entering a space far more complex than a private shelter. Beyond the staircase, the tunnel system unfolded into multiple directions. Each passage showed consistent measurements and professional reinforcement. Electrical wiring ran along the ceiling. Lighting fixtures, connected to portable generators, illuminated the space. The officers documented every section as they advanced deeper into the complex. The central chamber was the turning point in the investigation. Roughly the size of a small warehouse, it had structural columns supporting the ceiling, evenly spaced lighting, and a flat concrete floor. The sheer volume of excavated earth required to create this space shocked the team. It was evident that Reinhardt had worked thousands of hours to complete it. Adjacent rooms revealed even more about his intentions. One chamber held rows of bookshelves attached to concrete supports, containing volumes on engineering, geology, architecture, and urban planning. Another room had a bed frame, a makeshift kitchen counter, and metal shelving for supplies. Several rooms housed equipment. Generators, tools, containers of materials, and spare parts. A small section of the complex was dedicated to water processing. Officers documented layered filtration beds, storage tanks, and a network of pipes distributing water throughout the tunnels. Everything suggested that Reinhardt intended the complex to be habitable for long periods. Investigators found detailed diagrams pinned to the walls of a dedicated planning room. These included structural maps, airflow calculations, and expansion plans labeled as Phase 2, Phase 7, Outer Ventilation Loop, and Main Support Ring. The diagrams indicated that Reinhardt considered the project far from complete. Large portions of the complex were outlined but not yet built. Despite the shock, investigators also noted what was not present. There were no stockpiles of weapons, no explosives, no evidence of additional occupants, and no traces of illegal activity. Everything indicated a solitary engineering effort. The absence of any harmful intent complicated the legal response. During questioning, Reinhardt stated plainly that the complex was an architectural experiment. He believed that underground structures offered better stability and safety than surface-level housing. He said he wanted to build a long-term environment protected from economic, environmental, and infrastructural disruptions. His answers were direct, consistent, and unemotional. However, regardless of his intentions, the structure violated numerous state regulations. Sections extended under areas he did not own. The weight distribution created potential risks for surface collapse. Electrical systems lacked oversight. Ventilation outlets crossed property boundaries. Additionally, the complexity of the tunnels meant that emergency responders would have difficulty navigating the space in a crisis. State officials ultimately declared the complex unsafe. Portions near the surface were filled in to prevent further accidents. Deeper chambers were sealed and restricted due to the risk of destabilizing the ground. The central chamber, being too structurally integrated into the subsurface, was left intact but made inaccessible. After the legal process concluded, Reinhardt left Pennsylvania. There are no records of him attempting similar projects elsewhere. His professional license remained valid, but he never submitted new architectural plans, taught classes, or participated in public work again. He effectively disappeared from all professional circles. Today, the underground complex survives mostly in documentation, photographs taken during the investigation, structural maps drawn by officials, and reports stored in state archives. People who worked on the case often describe a similar impression: that the project was neither criminal nor delusional. It was the result of one individual's long-term commitment to an unconventional engineering vision. For more than a decade, a hidden city existed beneath the forest floor, built by a single architect with no outside assistance. And it might have remained unknown forever, if not for one misplaced step in the wrong patch of soil.